So I had a challenge for myself. Let's post on social media every single day for 60 days and see what happens. And the results that I got were insane. I built an account to like 40,000 followers. It got shut down. I built another account to like 20,000 followers. It got shut down. No notice, no warning, anything. Just TikTok's like, I don't like this guy. Delete. One post can literally change the entire trajectory of your life, both professionally and personally. All right, we're doing this thing. What's going on? Welcome to episode number 1 of the Impact Over Income podcast. And I'm super excited to be recording this episode for you guys because, I mean, let's be honest, the main reason you're here is to learn the takeaways of what happens when you post on a brand new Instagram account or brand new social media accounts over a 60-day period. What's the result? Did stuff go good? Did it go not so good? I'm going to give you a really quick spoiler here. We did over $100,000 in revenue. So it's pretty insane, honestly, way more than I expected. But I think there's a few key reasons that we're able to do that. And I honestly think anybody can do this. Anyone can duplicate this as long as they understand like the step-by-step process and the different facets that need to be really solid in order to see success in a way that I did. So we're gonna go over not only the starting numbers and the ending numbers in terms of followers, but also in terms of the the cash collected and the revenue. And then I have really 4 things written out here that I do want to go pretty in depth on and really explain to you guys. So I really think, because I'm gonna get really tactical in here in some of these takeaways, is I highly recommend grabbing a sheet of paper or something. Obviously, if you're listening in your car, don't do that because I do think there's going to be a good amount of stuff in here. Even just sharing with people on our team and some other people that have been doing social media for a long time, is they've been able to pull some takeaways from that, because I think there's a lot of value in being able to start from scratch and then do it, right? As opposed to if someone's starting with 50,000 followers and then they start growing it, obviously it's a lot easier at that point. And the other goal for this whole thing, because even at the time we're recording this, I haven't told or posted anywhere on like my personal social media like what the account is called, because I wanted to keep the challenge pure, if that makes sense, and I wanted to make sure that there was no outside forces that could come into this to really showcase how possible it is just with a little bit of consistency and really believing that this is something that can happen. So, all that being said, if you want to learn more about like what this podcast is going to be overall, I called it Impact Over Income because I just want to showcase and create a show where I teach you guys all the ways or all the things that I've learned over the last 16 years of posting on YouTube and social media and things like that. Not only how to grow your pages, but how to grow and scale ethically a business on the back end, right? So doing it in the right way so you don't feel sleazy or salesy when you're on calls with people. You feel like you're actually making a difference in people's lives. So I'm gonna do that with my own stories and my own teachings. And I also want to go talk to other entrepreneurs that have done the same thing, that have scaled successful companies off of the back of followers, or just being able to use their zone of genius and then doing it in an ethical way to actually change lives. So that being said, you can check out episode 0 if you want a little bit more breakdown of what the show is going to be. But let's jump into the reason all of you guys are here. And I'm going to take a real quick of this sparkling water before we jump in. So first things first, let's start about the starting numbers for both platforms. So Instagram, I started at 15 followers, and TikTok, I started at 29. So the reason I didn't start at 0 technically was because I was about 3-4 days into creating these new accounts, and I was like, hey, let me just do this challenge. I'm gonna post every day, see what happens. So that's why it's not technically starting at 0, but I didn't want to say starting at 0 when I didn't actually start at 0. So started at 15 on Instagram, started 29 on TikTok. So we'll cover Instagram first. The current number and I wrote down these numbers on day 61 technically, but this is a couple weeks after that. I just haven't had time to write out these, or to record these posts. But day 61, which was my current followers, was at 1,015. So it went from 15 to 1,015. So over that 60-day period, gained about 1,000 followers. Some people might look at that and they're like, oh, that's not a lot of followers. I have a very specific reason as to why I'm glad it didn't go too far over that, because we learned a lot in the process. But I am, when I was first starting the series, I was thinking, I think like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of these posts will go viral and I'll get like 10,000 followers and it'll be really cool for the challenge. But I think I'm glad that it didn't, because I'm glad I'm able to showcase that we're able to do a pretty considerable amount of revenue and cash from a small, right, relatively small following. So 15 to 1,015 in those 60 days on Instagram. Starting on TikTok, we started at 29 followers, and then we ended at 129 at the 60 days. Now, here's a very interesting thing that happened. So we're at 29 to 129, so gained about 100 followers in those 60 days, which if you go back through, I did like daily posts on my Instagram and on my personal Facebook, just breaking down and posting takeaways, every single day. And there was a period for about 6 days I'd gotten banned, like the account got taken down, which I'm not new to, by the way. I built an account to like 40,000 followers. It got shut down. Built another account to like 20,000 followers. It got shut down. No notice, no warning, anything. Just TikTok's like, I don't like this guy. Delete. And they deleted the account. So no new thing has happened for me getting deleted or, banned for those 6 days. I wasn't able to post, wasn't able to really interact with anything. So 29 to 129. But literally the day after I had posted on, or the day after it would hit the 60 days, so day 61, there was a post that I had posted 10 days prior that started going viral. So at the time of recording this, I think it's at like 40,000 views now. But that one video brought the followers from 129 to now we're about 250. And all those followers came from that one post. So really, it's not like anything astronomical, right? It's not 1 million views or anything like that. But hopefully what it's able to do for you is to showcase the possibility and what could happen when just one video pops off. You know what I mean? Or one video does even relatively better than all the other posts. So just, again, pretty cool to see. Do plan to continue to go pretty hard on TikTok as well. So let's talk about cash and the revenue. So cash collected in those 60 days was $41,786. So $41,786 with a brand new account. To be honest, we had hit like 20,000 in revenue. I'm sorry, 20,000 in cash collected when we were at like 450, 500 followers. So it's like, even if you had 500 followers, you can still help, convert those people over if you have the right messaging, if you create the right content, and if you hit the right pain points in the content that you're creating. So cash total 41,786, and then revenue total for all 60 days was 103,482. So in my opinion, again, 100,000 followers. If you break that down, that's basically like $100 per follower. Per every single follower. Now, another interesting note that I put down here over the 103 is it was only 9 units, right? Because we have a $9,800 product and we sold 9 of those, right? So 9 times 9,800 is just over or just under 100,000. But we did a couple of Black Friday sales, which we did. We had this promotion where it was our low ticket product that's usually $997, broke it down and brought it down to $497. I don't know how many units of that we did, but whatever 9,800 times 9, whatever the difference is between 103,482 minus the total there, that's how many 497 sales that we did. But just from a 9 units of the 9,800 with the amount of leads, we only got 300 leads, right? Out of those 1,000 people that followed, we got about 300 leads. Not all of them are followers, but when you really break that down, just interesting statistic is we had a 3% lead to close ratio, which if you compare to, we run a lot of Facebook ads as well, is our Facebook ads conversion is like 0.6 or 0.7. So that means anyone that opts in with their name, phone number, and email turns into to a sale. With this one, it was 3% of everyone that came through turns into a sale. Now, that's not saying that we're going to stay at 3%. But if I compare it to my YouTube organic stuff, which wasn't a part of this challenge, but if I compare it to YouTube organic, our YouTube organic lead to close is like 7%. But when you really break it down, it's because the organic audience, like the intent-based audience of people that are searching on YouTube, it just makes it to where like they're there to learn and they're there to want to like buy your stuff, essentially. You know what I mean? So with this 3% lead to close, I do expect that to go down, like the percentage, once there's more volume. But there was only 300 leads, so the setter, like the DM appointment setter that was in my DMs, had a lot more opportunity in there to really work all the leads and make sure that it was converting as many as possible. So yeah, that's the full on numbers. I think it's a couple takeaways for me that really just bleeds into these 4 things that I want to talk about. Is I really want you to understand that one post, guys, like one post can literally change the entire trajectory of your life, both professionally and personally. It's like, I think a lot of people get in their head where they need to be perfect, or they need to have this sense of like having all their ducks in a row or whatever it is. Actually, the reason that I'm recording this podcast and I'm starting this is, for the longest time, I've kind of been in this scenario where like I think I know a lot about social media, but I need to learn more before I start a podcast, or I need to do this before or that or whatever. Because to be honest, all my time is spent building, our brands for our business. So I can't promise that this is going to be an every week type of podcast. But because I was in this world of like, oh, I don't know if I should start, like whatever, I realized that, and I was like, well, I basically tell everyone that I talk to that they need to start on social media, and me not starting on this plan, I was like, I'm being a massive hypocrite. So when I realized that, it was like 2 or 3 days later, I was like, I'm making a podcast, got everything set up for it, starting building on the branding, and that's where this podcast was created. So what I want to tell you is another reason for this whole challenge is I just wanted to showcase how possible it is for literally anyone with no background, with no experience, to create content, go viral, and make money, and really be able to create an income from the impact that you create on other people's lives. So now with all that talked about, right, the followers and the money aspect both on both platforms, is I have 4 takeaways for you guys, and I'm going to go pretty in depth with these because I think these are like the foundational things that you 100% need to have dialed in before you start. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be perfect, but I'm saying that these are things that you just want to at least think about so that you're not wasting time on stuff that doesn't matter, and you're not wasting time creating content that isn't going to work long term. And I think it's point number 2. Yeah, point number 2, I think you'll definitely want to stick around for, because I think this is going to be a huge thing for a lot of people, is knowing when to start a brand new account. That might sound kind of weird. You're like, Aaron, I'm not going to start a new account. I'm already at 10,000 followers. Well, those 10,000 followers could honestly not only be useless, but could be hurting your growth and not giving you the growth that you really should, quite frankly, be seeing on social media. So stick around for point number 2, and I think a lot of people will get a lot from this. So point number 1, and again, this is, I think you need to think about this way before you really start even creating content, and it's getting clear with your ideal client. And I know you've heard that a lot, but I'm gonna go way deeper than you've probably heard this, and why it's so important to get clear with your ideal client. So when I say getting clear with your ideal client, you need to understand like what is your long-term goal with your page, like what are you selling specifically, and then a long-term vision of where you see yourself. Now the last one, I know a lot of people, even myself included, I usually struggle with like coming up with a long-term vision, right? What are you gonna be in the next 5 years? Dude, I don't even know what I'm gonna be doing next week. I have 4 kids, I have a family, and sometimes it's what's the word? It's a whirlwind of what could be going on. At the time of recording this, I'm having a baby next week too. So it's like, did I just say 4 kids? 3 kids, the 4th is on the way. It's coming on the 6th of February. So here's why this stuff is so important, guys, is when you first started creating content, what I've done and what I've recommended to a lot of people is do research around what other people are doing in the niche. So for example, if you're a health coach, go onto TikTok and look at what other health coaches are doing. The writing is on the wall, and you can see that people are seeing success doing certain types of content. So don't look at that as like, oh, like I'm just gonna copy them verbatim. No, look at it as like, use it as inspiration, understand that it went viral for a reason, and then just add your own spin to it, right? So the problem is though, if you don't understand who your ideal client is, and I'll tell you just directly from us, when I was doing this initial research, the offer that we sell, it's called the Remote Closing Academy. Like I said, it's $9,800. Essentially what we do is we teach people how to make money online by becoming a remote sales rep. So they are basically a salesperson for a high ticket company that we have on the back end as well through our B2B companies. Now, when you really like chalk it down to like the simplest aspect of what that is we're selling a program of making money online, right? So if I use this, and I'm not saying if, like I use this exact same strategy, and I went out and like, okay, what are these other make money online people are doing? And a lot of them, to be honest, was just, for lack of a better word, they were just doing it in a very, they were doing it with really no integrity. And the reason I say that is they're just making massive claims. They're like, here's how you can make $100,000 next month with no work. And it's like, I don't want to do that. But here's the thing, is I looked at that as like, oh, this is successful. Let me do the same thing. Now, I didn't go as crazy with the claims. I used like examples of what people have been able to do in our program, but it still was just in this mode of like, here's how to make money online. Here's how to make money online with no work, like that type of thing. And because I wasn't clear with like the ideal client of who I want to approach, as I was doing that research, all these people that are making this content, right? They're a lot of younger dudes and gals too. Mostly, I feel like the space is mostly filled with men. Maybe it's because I'm a guy and that's what the algorithm serves me. But it's just like, that's what I was seeing and that's what I was copying. But our ideal client is not, a 17, 18, 19-year-old, right? Our ideal client is someone that's like lived through a little bit of pain. They've lived through a little bit of struggle. They maybe have a job that they don't like right now. And here's how you can create this income and get yourself out of that and provide more for your family, right? Really from this, like, talking about impact over income is I want to be able to impact those people's lives. And then as a byproduct, we're making money. And as a byproduct, they're making money as well. Right. So the problem and the issue that I was facing is I was gaining good traction on the first, 10, 15, 20 posts. And one of them, did, 10, 15,000 views, but we were just talking to a lot of quote unquote lower quality people that were not fitting that ideal client. So when you're talking about your ideal client, understanding the goal and what you're selling, here's what I'll say too. If you're watching this, which there's a good chance that you probably don't fit this demographic, because I'm assuming most people that are watching this want to like make money from social media, right? And make money from the impact that they can make on other people's lives. And so that's one bucket, right? You have two buckets here. On one side, you have, if you're thinking about, or let me frame this in a little bit different way. When you're on social media, when you do this exercise, what you're doing is you're figuring out what camp you're going to be in. On one side, I feel like is going to be your goal, just gaining a ton of followers, right? Getting a ton of followers in a short amount of time. And on the other side of the fence is going to be building followers, on the other side of the fence is selling your offer, right? Selling your thing and making money from social media. If you're on the left side in this example and you're saying, I just want to gain a ton of followers, the content strategy is very different than on the other side, right? The content strategy there, literally just post 3-second videos, post, trending audio, post motivational quotes and blow it up, right? That could be the goal. But the thing is that type of content a lot of times isn't going to generate buyers, right? Now, if you do it in like a really massive way where you're gaining millions of views every post, like from a sheer volume standpoint, you're going to convert people over. But on the other side, you're looking at like the how do I make sales? If you're only creating sales content, you're not going to open yourself up to a new audience. And then you're just at this point where you're making a ton of content. No one's becoming clients because it's not being seen by people. So that's why it's so important to get clear with your goal, because if you just want to gain followers, do this. If you just want to try to make sales, do this. I think the perfect scenario is going to be where you're right in the middle and making like 50% content that opens you up to a new market, 50% content that's actually converting. Now, realistically, that needs to be more of like, the Pareto principle, more 80-20, 80% awareness, 20% conversion. But the awareness should still be within the context of you creating content for your niche. So it's still, in my opinion, shouldn't be dancing videos, shouldn't be, which I think probably people enjoy. It doesn't have to be dancing videos. So all that being said, that was like a massive, massive turning point for me where I realized that I was creating content that was getting views and getting followers, but it wasn't creating the right audience. So about 40 days into it, what we did was transitioned into, so again, our content is talking about how to create better salespeople or how to create everyday people into salespeople. Is I was like, well, let me just like transition more into becoming the go-to person for sales, right? Sales advice, as opposed to this make money online guy. Because the other thing that I was thinking about too is there really isn't a ton of like big salespeople in the space other than, you have like the Grant Cardones or the, the Jordan Belforts and people like that. But there really isn't like any good people that are teaching sales while also teaching how to make that into a reality for yourself to make money. On the other side of things, it's like this other thing of like Amazon FBA, drop shipping, affiliate marketing, all the other like business opportunity people that are creating content is just very just very shallow, right? There was no actual, and as I was creating the videos, I didn't really even feel like I was providing value. So, I think all in all, making the transition was super, super helpful for me. And I realized not only did I feel more ethical by doing it, not only did I feel like I was actually providing value, but we started getting less leads, but more and higher conversion and just better conversations. And I think that's another unspoken thing that isn't really talked about is there. I believe there's so much value in quality over quantity, especially when you have a sales team like we do, where my setter was just getting frustrated. He was in my DMs. He's like, dude, this person doesn't have money. This person doesn't have money. This guy's like 17. He's still in high school, whatever. But like when I made that transition, he's like, dude, every one of these people that I'm talking to, like they have money to invest. They really want to make a change. They want to, create a better life for themselves and their family. Like they're bought in. So it's just bringing it back to the main thing is, if I would have changed anything, I would have gotten way more clear with my ideal client. If I wanted to see success quicker, I definitely would have just gotten clear with that a lot bit sooner and transitioned and focused in on the sales content first. Now, of course, there's still a lot of room to test different things, but that's the idea there. So let me hit a little refresher. This is the hard part about solo podcasts. I'm like the interviewer and I can just kind of hang out and ask the questions, but it is what it is. So let's jump into the second thing here. Basically going over the analytics that you should know about and what to focus on and what's like actually important. So for those of you that are maybe a little bit newer to social media, I mean, if this is across like platforms, but if you didn't know, there's a couple different pieces of engagement or people that they can engage with your content. There's comments, there's likes, there's shares, there's saves, and there's the last one I think is the most important, which is watch time. So I'm going to go through and kind of explain what each of these means and how to like optimize on them, and then how you can make decisions on your next pieces of content based on these things, and also like the hierarchy of these. Now I'm just going to come out and say, I learned this information from like some other people online. I don't think there really is much like merit behind, this one is better than this one, but we can always theorize on which one is going to be better and look at like, I have a spreadsheet of where I have all my content. I will say there is a correlation between a video that does exponentially better, that has more shares, saves, and has better watch time. And we'll break down all these. So first things first is, so if we had to put these in like a hierarchy, right, I would say at the bottom of the list is likes, then you have comments, then you have saves, then you have shares, and then you have watch time. So that's kind of like going up, at the top being watch time, the bottom being likes. So if you get likes on a post, what that's really telling you from like an engagement standpoint is that people like enjoy the content, right? I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. You don't really have to go too much into that, but it's literally like, and maybe they don't even like the content. A lot of times, like maybe you're a person that they've seen a lot and they don't even watch the content. They just like it. Like there's a couple people that I'll see their stuff and I don't even watch the content. I just kind of like habit like, if that's a thing. Maybe I just came up with a new term because I want to support them, right? So likes, I really don't think is a huge thing that you can really optimize on, if that makes sense. Now comments, however, what that allows you to do and what it allows you to see is it's that next step of like someone actually has to put like thought into it. So when they leave a comment, it's starting that conversation. Now I do think that obviously Instagram is going to like that a little bit more because you're then engaging with that person. And then recently there's been a lot of people that have been doing, and we did it as well, kind of like engagement hacking, where you set up an account with ManyChat. Maybe I'll make a video if enough people want it. You can make this automation through a company or a software called ManyChat, which if people comment a specific word or a specific phrase or something in your comments, it can automate a message out to them. So you can be really sneaky with this and basically do a CTA, like a call to action in your post, and say, hey, if you want this specific resource, comment whatever, and then you can automate like a resource going to them, maybe a YouTube video or whatever. But comments, again, it's showing that this person is actually engaged. Now, these next three I think are definitely more powerful, for lack of a better word. Like Instagram deems them as more important for posts to actually go viral. And the first of those being saves. So the reason saves are important, if we break it down to like the simplest the simplest like way of explaining is all Instagram, really not even Instagram, TikTok, like all these social media platforms, all they really care about is people staying on their platform, right? So if your video has a ton of saves, and what that's doing is like, in theory, the person is saving that video to come back to it. Whether they do or not, that's a different story. I mean, I save stuff all the time, and I go to my save folder sometimes, like, oh yeah, I forgot, I saved this for that specific reason. But they save it. So what Instagram is looking at that as is it is giving the it's like the content is valuable enough for them to want to come back to the app. And Instagram loves when people come back to the app, right? Because they can keep people on there more, they can serve more ads to them. So again, I've seen a direct correlation with my content. If it does have more saves, then it definitely does better. The next one, which I think is massive, which then puts it on the next list, or the next part of it is shares. So back to that whole example, right? If Instagram wants more people on the app, shares, what it does is it brings people in. Like it's actively bringing people in as opposed to saves. It's like that person is telling themselves that they want to come back. This is like, oh, they're bringing people to the platform. So if that piece of content is bringing more people to the platform, Instagram is going to show it to more people because they want more people to share it and create this like web effect, right? Because if one person shares it to 3 people and those 3 people share it to 3 people and those, whatever that math is, right? I'm not even gonna try. Then it becomes this web of all these people just flooding the platform, which of course Instagram likes. And then the most important on the top is going to be watch time. This is the most important because again, if you think back to the basic of what these platforms want is they want people to be on their platform for as long as humanly possible because they can serve them more ads, get in front of more people. So with the watch time is if you can optimize on the watch time, which means, as a byproduct is you're going to have people, more followers, more engagement because Instagram is pushing it to more people. But this is like the telltale sign of you having good content. Because if you create like, let's say a 10-minute video or not 10 minutes, but let's say you make a 1-minute video and they watch it for 10 seconds, that's only 10% watch time, right, on that video. Now there's watch time, average view duration, kind of a little bit different, but really what this is watch time broken down into replays, into retention. So retention is how long are they watching your video, and then replays is how many times are they replaying your video. Because the more that they replay, the longer they're staying on the platform. The longer they're staying on the platform, the more you're going to be rewarded from this. So I'm going to make a lot of other videos that goes over watch time because I have a lot of data behind this. What I like to call it is like retention hacking, or not even hacking, just like more retention optimization, we'll call it. Because I found like at the very beginning of this whole series is I was only able to keep, like if I made a minute long video, I was really only able to keep people's attention for like 9 seconds. Now on average of a 1-minute video, I can keep them on the video for like 25, 30, sometimes 35 seconds, which is like, in my opinion, is pretty massive, but it's only because I've learned what's important to people and why, like how to get them to stick around. And again, it's kind of a long process, but I don't want you to leave you on a cliffhanger. It's easy, right? It's number one, creating a really good hook. What is like going to keep them engaged enough in the first 3 seconds to want to watch the rest of the video. And then what you're doing is you're baking in the script, you're baking in subtle different things that make them want to continue to watch longer. So for example, if I'm saying, here are the best 3 tips to help you explode on Instagram this year. On the screen, what I'm going to do every time I get to a new tip, I'm going to show all 3 things on screen, but I'm going to like basically blur out number 2 and number 3, or when I first say at the beginning, I'm going to blur out everything so they can't see it. So now their brain is like, okay, I see the 3 things there and he's telling me 3 things, but I can't see any of them. I need to figure out what it is. So then, we go to number 1. It's like number 1 is this, and it reveals it. And we still bring the 3 up on the screen. Reveals the first one. That's another mental cue for the person that there's still 2 more that are there. They're blurred out, and they still want to see what those are. Really quick tip or hack: if you're doing 3, you always want to give your best tip first. And I know that's very opposite of what people say on like YouTube, because they're like, oh, make sure to stay to the end because of this. But what happens if you give a really bad tip as your first tip? What's going to happen is they already assume number 2 and number 3 to be bad. So when you can deliver the best up front, they're like, oh snap, that was massive. I need to stay around for number 2 and number 3. So that's just a really quick masterclass, if you will, of retention. But there's so many other strategies and ways that you can improve on that. So here's what I was talking about earlier. How do you know, and should you create a new account? Should you create a new Instagram account, TikTok account, whatever it is? And I would be confident to say that 80 to 90% of people that are watching this video or that are listening to this podcast need to start a new account. And here's why. When you think about, and really this brings us to point number one, right? Getting and understanding your ideal client. So let's say, you have a real estate business, and let's say you've had your account, or really any business for that matter. Let's say you have an account, you've had your personal account for 5 years, right? Or 10 years or whatever. You've constantly been posting content and, putting your stuff out there and whatever. Especially if it's a personal account, what's going to happen is, let's say you use your current account. All of this goes back to watch time and engagement. Is let's say you're a real estate agent, you've had your account for a long time, and you make a video of like, here are the 3 tips of how to buy and sell. What's happening is, let's say you had 10,000 followers. Instagram is going to send that video out to 10,000 people, or I'm sorry, it's going to send it out to an initial batch of people that are your followers. Now, if you've had your account for a long time, and number one, people don't really like follow you for that stuff anymore. Number two, it's like your family, so they don't really care. Number three, it's like past buyers that are following your stuff, or past sellers or whatever. They're just not in that part of their life. What happens is Instagram is going to send it to that group of people. If those group of people don't care about your content, it's not going to push it to the next group of people, which is going to allow you to get in front of a new audience, which is where you get new followers from. So the bottleneck that I see a lot of people in is they get really frustrated. Is they're like, oh my gosh, like I'm posting this content, I feel like it's really good, but I'm just not seeing the traction that I want. So actually a little bit of an actionable thing that you can do. If and I can't showcase this on here because my phone doesn't like do screen recording. It's really weird. But what you can do is you can go to your Instagram app. I'm gonna try to like talk you through it if you're on the video version, or I guess both video and audio. Is go to a post. So I don't know how well you guys can see this. Let me switch to my here we go. So this is like my own personal. Actually, no. Let me give you direct. I'll give you a direct example from one of our accounts. So for example, let's say I go to one of these videos that didn't really do that well because it's against the wrong audience. So for example, this video, perfect. So it's a little bit different, 130,000 followers, which actually this could even really bring it down more, or really explain this concept more. Is if you go to insights, right? So you click a post. So let me just show you guys really quickly. So this is the post right here, right at the bottom. I don't know if it's going to focus, but at the bottom right over here, there's a little button that says View Insights. So you're going to click View Insights. It's going to bring up this little thing here. And then you're going to go down to that spot there where it says, it's not focusing. Come on. It's not gonna do it for me. So anyway, the reach, what it says here is it reached 1,458 people. Followers, it reached 1,258. Non-followers, only 200. Now this might not be the best example actually, because there's some like really extreme examples where I've seen that it only goes out to the current followers and doesn't test it with a brand new audience. And that's where people get messed up with. Because what happens is, let me see if I can see here. Yeah, so this video is like a minute long. Average view duration, average watch time is only 4 seconds. And the reason is because that specific account was not originally built in the audience, like keeping the audience in mind. So I know that's kind of confusing, and I would like if you're on the video version, it might make a little bit more sense. But the problem that people run into is your content might not even be that bad. Like I'm sure you can obviously improve upon it, but if you're not giving yourself enough data or enough like actual good feedback of if the video is good or not, then you are not going to be able to really grow and see the success with your content, and they're just going to get burnt out. So here's a test that I would do: is I want you to go on your Instagram. I want you to post something that you feel like would be really, really valuable for your ideal client or the people that are on on your Instagram. And then I want you to look at 24 hours later. You want to look at your average view duration, and you want to look at the reach of the post. if the average, so, and you would look at the average view duration first. For example, if it's a minute long video, you would want to look and see what is the average view duration. And then you would want to see the amount of people that it was reached that it actually went out to. Because if your post doesn't go viral, the reason is because it's only sending it to your current followers, right? It's only sending it to your current followers. And if those followers they do not like your content and make the average view duration low, then you are literally shooting yourself in the foot, and you're never going to grow past a specific point because the followers that are following your stuff are not into your content. So that was a very long way of saying it. And so if you look at that data and it's not getting sent out to a new audience, and you find that happening on every single one, I would just say start a new account. And when I tell you, and I can give you just another direct example, is for example, there was a post that I did on my new account, which did like 17,000 views. So I was like, let me really look at this. I posted the exact same one on this account that has 132,000 followers, which you would think, oh, more followers equals more engagement, whatever. I had, I think, 1,000 views on the old account, 14,000 views on the new account. One of them, at the time, that account had 300 followers. This account has 132,000. So really, I hope that really bakes in the fact that, because I think the argument and the reason that people don't create their new account is because like they're like, Aaron, I have a ton of followers, and I don't want to lose those followers. It's like, listen, those followers don't care about you. It just is what it is. So I would much rather, and why I did this series in the first place, is I would much rather know and give my content a fair shake, as opposed to posting content for audience that doesn't really even care about me, that probably forgot about me, because I made this account I made my personal account, for example, back in 2011. So it's like, obviously the people that at first, like, they probably don't even recognize me at this point. These are people that I went to school with like a really long time ago. So that being said, if you're watching the podcast version or whatever, down below, I'm gonna make a new Instagram account, and it's gonna be all around like social media content, how to build, kind of like off the back of this podcast and YouTube channel. I'm calling it Aaron Makes Content, and I'm starting it from scratch because it would be stupid for me to post, knowing what I know now, it would be stupid for me to post to my 7,000, 8,000 followers, as opposed to just like creating it new, posting it on my social, because I know that audience would be interested in it, and then only moving over people that are actively interested in the content, giving my content an actual test, and then building it from there. So hopefully that makes sense. I know it was like kind of a lot, but anyway, so let's jump into the next point here. Point number 3. Now this one, I'm gonna say this thing. Don't click off, because I know you're gonna be like, Aaron, that just sounds really obvious or whatever. But I'm gonna tell you guys some stories behind this. So number 3 is consistency is massive, and in my opinion, it's necessary. And it's necessary for 2 reasons. Number 1 is you have this thing called, I don't think I made this up, but it makes sense to me, like a term, is compounded learning. So I got like an analogy from Alex Hormozi. I saw like a reel or something from him. He was talking about the idea of how much more you can learn when you're more consistent. And I know it's obvious, but just hear me out. So the example that he gave was, let's say you had 2 people, and one person and they're trying to get better at cold calling and setting more appointments and doing more deals. They had one person that would cold call for an hour a day, and another person that would cold call for 6 hours a day. And he would say, obviously the one with 6 hours a day is going to increase better than the person that's doing it for 1 hour or 2 hours a day. Now, it's not linear though, in the sense of, with that example, right? One person 6 hours, one person 2 hours, is with the math alone, you would say, okay, this person is doing 3 times more work, right? In those 6 hours, or I'm sorry, 2, 4, 6. So 2 hours versus 6 is that you'd say, okay, that person is doing 3 times more work than, from the 2 to 6. But what you're forgetting is the compounded learning that happens in that process. So for example, the next day, person number 2 is going to have called, or after day number 2, person number 2 is going to be doing this for 12 hours and the other person is 4. But because he's doing more dials, because he's handling more objections, because he's talking to more people, what he's doing is he's learning the scripts that are better and the scripts that actually work and how to handle specific objections. So that by the time he gets to day number 3, is he already knows how to handle all of the objections. He knows how to handle the no's. He knows how to handle rejection. He knows how to do X, Y, and Z. And this person still might be fumbling through the script, right? Because they've only put in that example 4 hours of work. So, if I had to relate this directly back to content, is like, let's say, because I've learned so much stuff in the last 60 days of like, I have a very clear plan of how I can get to 50,000, if not more followers in 2024. It's like, it's like a decision in my mind that I've made because I know the steps I need to get there. So for example, let's say we look at like a week of content posting, and let's say that, again, just for this compounding learning example, is let's say in order to fully like optimize on a specific type of content, or I'm sorry, a piece of content that works, let's say it takes 3 days, right? So let's say you're comparing someone, like let's say me, let's say I post every single day, at least once a day, and then you have someone else that posts 3 times a week. So if we're taking that idea of, okay, in order to optimize on a piece of content to make sure that it works, it takes 3 days. So if you look at 3 days, every 3 days in my cycle, is I'm going to be able to optimize 2.3 times, right? In a single week. With another person, they're only able to optimize 1 time in a week because they're posting 3 times in a 7-day period. So by the time I'm done with week 1, I've already figured out what doesn't work, what has worked, and then optimized and made a better version of that, as opposed to another person using an entire week to just figure out the first format. So if we look at that over a month, is now, in that period, let's call it 30 days, right? So in a 30-day period, is person number 1 that only posts 3 times a week, is they're only getting 4 cycles, right? Week 1, they do 3, they learn a little bit, they go into the next one, implement. So they're only able to do 4 cycles. Me, with posting every single day, right, over a 30-day period, so you would take the 30 divided by 3, right? So that's 10. So I'm able to optimize more than 2 times, right? So it's like 4 and some change, because, every 3 days, it would be, every 3 days. I'm trying to do this math in my head. So it's like 30 days, I'm optimizing every 3 posts, and that equals 10 optimizations in that time in a month, as opposed to the other person that only has 4. So again, I'm optimizing more on that, but it's that compounding effect of, in numbers, it's 4 times, but you would now imagine that after the first or second or third cycle, I've now been able to figure out exactly what works. So the rest of my time is fully optimized time. And yeah, I'm going to win, essentially, if we're comparing 1 time a day versus 3 times a week. So the other reason that I believe this is really important, I apologize that was confusing. As I was explaining it, I was like, this is either going to go over people's heads or they're going to understand, and it's going to be super cool. Okay. So the other reason is you're always going to gain more followers when you post. Now, this is, again, directly from my own data. I'm not just pulling this out of my butt. Throughout the 60-day challenge, there was 2 days that I didn't post on my Instagram. Now, you might be saying, well, Aaron, that means that you didn't do the challenge. Well, I found a little loophole in the system of my own challenge. And again, this was just a challenge for myself. So I wasn't like, if someone said like, oh, that doesn't count, I don't care. Because it was my own like personal challenge. But to keep myself in the posting everyday mindset and the only reason I did is because we were traveling for a company event, and it was, going to and leaving. I just didn't have the time to record the content I needed to. So what I did was I posted like a recap on my Facebook, just of like what I've been learning. So then it sufficed of like I posted on that day on social media. Wasn't on my Instagram account, but hey, we're doing what we need to get the challenge done. So what happened is, so about 15 to 20 days in, I was averaging about 20 to 30 new followers a day. Sometimes a post would do better. I would get like 70 or 80. On the 2 days that I posted, again, averaging on every other day, anywhere from 20 to 60 followers every single day. On the 2 days that I didn't post, The first day I gained 4 followers, again, average 20 to 60. I gained 4. The second time that I didn't post, I gained like 7. So if you compare 20 to 40 to 4 and 7, you can see that I haven't gained a ton of followers in that time. Now also being 2 to 3 weeks later, I've still still posted about 3 to 4 times a week. I do want to get back to the 1 a day, but to be honest, I did post a lot in that amount of time, and we just had a lot of other projects that came up, so haven't been able to get back to that posting schedule. But I just haven't grown as much as I've wanted to. So going into February, I do have much more of a plan. I've already stockpiled a ton of content to be able to have really 2 to 3 weeks of content done and edited, so that when I do come back, right, and start posting, it'll be an everyday thing. And I won't have to worry about what I was doing, during the whole challenge. Is I would record 2 or 3 videos. Editor would record those. While he was editing those, I would record more, and it was just back and forth thing because I was constantly learning, constantly optimizing on the watch time, and learning a lot in that process. But really, hopefully that data point shows you that like when you are consistent and when you post more and when you're just constantly showing up for people, it's going to help you out a ton, right? It's going to be massive for your growth. So hopefully that really drives home the point of consistency. And so that's number 3. Number 4, the last thing that I'll talk about is a cheat code that I found through the whole process. And I really knew that this was going to happen. But a really massive cheat code in this entire thing is understanding sales. And this is like, I won't be promoting, like, honestly, I don't even have an offer around this. We have our B2B company, which focuses more on like ads and stuff, not really organic social media. So I can't even sell you something if I wanted to, but I do recommend to really dive into sales and understanding sales as best as possible. During this whole journey, I think I mentioned it earlier too, I've spent a lot of money on coaching and courses and group programs and things like that. And just being in these programs and interacting with people is, number one, jumping on with the salespeople that like try to bring me into these programs. They were all pretty not that great. And no hate against anyone, it just kind of is what it is. I do sales for a living, so it's like I'm always judging them a little bit and seeing what they how they do it. But the people that were trying to bring me in were not that great. It just is what it is. So I knew that like I'm a really easy sale. But seeing like how I was thinking, I was like, if they were to operate this phone call with like literally anybody else, like they're not, like no one's buying this thing. Like it's rough. And then being in the program, interacting with the other people in there as well, is everyone is just not like, it's not that they're not good at sales. I think that they just don't understand how important it is. So you watching this, you have that upper hand of understanding that like sales is so freaking important in this process. Because if you can't sell people on your idea, you can have 1 million followers. Heck, I know I've talked to a lot of people. They have 2, 3, 4, 500,000 followers, and they're barely cracking, 10 grand a month. And it's like, dude, we broke 10 grand a month with like 200 followers. You know what I mean? And the only reason we've been able to do that, again, the cheat code is sales, right? Being able to not only create the good content, but also being able to create content that converts people into DMs. And then I get in the DMs, have conversations with them, figuring out what their pain is, what their desire is, why they haven't been able to achieve their goal, what their like really long-term vision and goals are, and then pitch them on a sales call where, at that point, I wasn't doing a lot of my own sales calls just because we have a sales team, and it didn't make a ton of sense with the amount of time. I did personally jump on with 2 of them, and I closed both of them. Which, I mean, another like cheat code, if we're talking about cheat codes, is having a personal brand. Like those conversations were so freaking easy is because they were already sold by the time they got on, is they'd seen enough content. They were indoctrinated enough to, little sales hack for you, or little sales, masterclass. Quick one is you need to make 2 sales in every product, or 2 sales in every sales call. The sale on the method and the sale on the product. What that means is when, let's say you're selling an organic content course, right? And they need to understand that the method of generating or generating sales through organic content is the only way to do it, or the most optimized way to do it, right? They need to understand the method, and they need to understand the product, which is your course. You have X amount of group calls, one-on-one coaching, whatever. The problem that a lot of people try to do and optimize on is selling the product when a lot of times they don't need to really be sold on the product more than they do the method, right? The method is where they need to be sold more, in my opinion, than the product itself, because if they're sold on the method and you position yourself as the way to utilize and capitalize on that method, then they're going to buy your product, right? So little sales masterclass. But so really just understanding sales and having those genuine conversations with people. And because back to the point is your organic content is automatically, they're already going to be sold on the method, right? They're being sold on the method before they jump in the conversation with you. So the hardest sale is already done. You just got to sell them on like why you're the best fit for them and why your thing is going to be the fastest and most efficient way to help them achieve their end goal, which how you do that is through asking skilled questions on a sales call. The way you ask that is through Socratic dialogue. Socratic dialogue is being able to ask questions from them, get them to create a consistency bias within themselves so that by the end of the call, I'm just kind of throwing out a bunch of sales points at this point, but it's really just, again, understanding that you have a product, you can sell it to them, but I think just being intentional that creating content is just the beginning of the game. And there's so much more after that in terms of bringing them in and also fulfilling on that, which is going to be, allow you to bring you to the title of this podcast, which is creating income from creating impact and keeping impact over income. So that being said, guys, that's going to do it for episode number 1 of the podcast. I mentioned it towards the beginning is I do know I want to keep a consistent schedule. I want to say that I'm going to be able to do once a week, but because all my time is being spent on, building up our other brands, I just don't know how possible it is. So I might, maybe start off like bi-weekly, every other week, but we'll see. If you want to keep up to date with all that stuff, obviously subscribe on YouTube, leave a like, leave a comment what you thought down below. Also follow on your favorite podcast app. So this is going out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and I believe Google Podcasts, but I think that's like getting taken up by, some other platform. And then down in the description below as well is going to be the YouTube channel if you're watching on the podcast version. And then my other Instagram, Aaron Makes Content, at Aaron Makes Content. I'm going to be posting a lot of short form stuff over there of just what I'm learning overall when it comes to the social media stuff. Not only from building this brand as I'm starting it, but also just continuing to build these other secondary brands that are basically started from scratch. Our YouTube channel has 35,000 subscribers, which I want to talk about how we're able to really build that, do like $300,000 a month from organic YouTube, which is, again, a whole other tangent that I can go down. But again, if you want to learn all about that and really dive into fully understanding social media from someone that has done it, has built my own platforms over and over again, and it wasn't just luck from doing it one time, make sure to follow along here on the Impact Over Income podcast. We'll see you guys from, Aaron here. See you guys in the next episode. Talk soon. Peace.